Hello, my name is Devyn Ferry, and today I'm going to be talking about the artist Yayoi Kusama, and specifically what makes her work so engaging and unique. Kusama is known for creating immersive installations that surround the viewer, especially her infinity mirror rooms. Instead of just looking at art, you become a part of it. Much of her work focuses on repetition, pattern, and the idea of infinity, which creates a very powerful experience. For background, Yayoi Kusama was born in Japan in 1929, and from a very early age, she experienced vivid hallucinations that strongly influenced her artistic vision. After studying traditional Japanese painting, she moved to New York in the late 1950s to pursue more creative freedom and became a part of the avant garde art scene. During this time, she began developing the experimental style she is now known for, especially her use of repetition and immersive environments. Even though she faced both personal and financial struggles, she continued to create art, and her work eventually gained international recognition. What makes Kusama especially interesting is how personal her work is. Like I said, from a very young age, she experienced these hallucinations, and she would see patterns, dots, and forms spread across everything around her. Instead of trying to ignore these experiences, she turned them into art. Repetition became a way for her to cope and gain control over what she was seeing. This is where a lot of her signature style comes from, especially the polka dots and the repeated forms. Her work shows us how she experiences the world. Now, some of her most famous works are her infinity mirror room installations. These installations, made with mirrors, lights, and repeated objects that reflect endlessly in all directions. When you step inside, it feels like the space goes on forever, even though the room itself is actually very small. What's really important is that the viewer becomes a part of the artwork. Your reflection is repeated over and over. You are no longer separate from the art piece, you have become one with it. The idea of infinity in her work is not just about space, but it's also about identity. Kusama talks about something that she calls self obliteration, which is the idea that the individual self can dissolve into something larger and greater. In the infinity mirror rooms, you lose a clear sense of where you end and the space begins. This creates a feeling of being connected to something infinite, almost like the universe. It can be calming, but also a little disorienting, which also reflects her own experiences. Another very important part of Kusama's work is her use of pumpkins. She started drawing pumpkins as a child because she found them comforting during her hallucinations. Over time, pumpkins became one of her most recognizable symbols. She uses them in sculptures, paintings, and installations. Even though they look playful and simple, they still connect to her larger themes of repetition and pattern. The dots covering these pumpkins ties them back to her overall style as well. Now, the obliteration room is a very interactive and a very interesting piece. It starts as a completely white room filled with completely white furniture and objects. Then, when visitors come in, they're invited to place colorful dots and stickers all over the walls, all over the furniture, and everything. Over time, the room becomes completely covered in these stickers and these colors and this pattern. And what's important here is that the audience becomes a part of the creative process. Instead of just observing the installations, they're actively transforming the installation and the space around them. This also connects to our idea of self obliteration, where individual actions combine into something larger, shared, and greater. Now, in her accumulation series, Kusama takes everyday objects like chairs or furniture and covers them in repeated organic forms. These forms often look soft, phallic, and appear to be growing out of the surface of the furniture, which makes the objects feel strange, alien, and unfamiliar. This work is more intense and personal to Kusama as it relates to her fears and discomforts in childhood trauma, especially around the human body and sexuality. By repeating these forms over and over, she's transforming this fear into something she can control and express both artistically and therapeutically. Now, why does her work matter? What I find most interesting about Kusama's work is how it combines something very personal with something universal. Even though her art comes from her own experiences, it creates environments that anyone can step into and emotionally feel. Her work stands out because it's not just something you look at, it's something you experience physically and emotionally. I think that's what makes her work so powerful. It makes people think about space, identity, and their place in the world in a way that feels immersive. And this is my works cited. Thank you.